Hello, I have with me tonight Anne McIntosh, who's from the Department of Primary Industries. Hello, Anne, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Lisa. Thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you for being with us. As you know, we work with family daycare educators who work with young children. Why are children considered particularly vulnerable in terms of food illnesses?
I think as every parent who's had a child in some form of childcare, mine included, they're a bit like walking petri dishes, which is how I often describe my son. Their immune systems, because they are young, are not as developed as an adult, and that makes them much more susceptible to a whole range of childhood illnesses, including foodborne illness.
Okay, and as you're aware, a lot of family daycare educators operate out of their own homes. Is there particular legislation that they've got to follow as, people that serve food to these vulnerable children?
Yeah, absolutely there is. So anyone who is serving food, be it in the home or not, even if it's just to kids in a family daycare situation, is classified as a food business. And all food businesses in both in New South Wales and all of Australia have to meet with the requirements of the Food Standards Australia Food Standards Code, and in particular what are called the food safety standards, which cover off all of your good processing practices around temperature control, cross-contamination, health and hygiene of food handlers, the facility hygiene itself, and also the structural requirements for the facility as well. So things like hand wash basins and services being smooth and impervious to moisture. So they're the requirements that apply to every single food business in the country, including family daycare.
You may be aware family daycare educators operate out of their own homes. What sort of food safety legislation do they need to abide by?
Yeah, like any other retail business, the main food safety legislation that applies to family daycare is the Food Standards Code. So standards 3.2.2 and 3.2.3 cover safe preparation of food, be it in a retail shop or in a family daycare. It covers the hygiene of the facility, hygiene of workers who may be handling food there, and also any structural requirements for the facility.
So do family daycare services need to register as a food business with their local council?
Yes, so local council have the primary jurisdiction for inspecting both childcare centres and family daycare centres. So anyone who's operating a centre of that type would need to register with their local council.
Okay. So what are the main areas of food preparation or storage that educators need to be aware of in terms of food safety?
Sure. One thing COVID has really reinforced with everyone is the need to wash your hands frequently. So in a food handling environment, before you start handling food, after handling raw foods, or whenever else it's actually needed, to wash their hands. Using clean and sanitized utensils is also a really good way, and that just helps to eliminate some cross-contamination. Most people are aware of the requirement to keep food under temperature control, so either keeping it below 5 degrees Celsius or keeping it above 60 degrees Celsius for any potentially hazardous foods that need temperature control. One of the biggest issues that we come across is food prep and storage, and making sure that food is prepared safely for kids, is making sure that your food contact surfaces, so that's chopping boards, knives, plates, forks, whatever, are both visually clean but also properly sanitized. So visual cleaning will remove any surface dirt that you can see, but sanitizing actually gets down to microbial level and remove any residual bacteria that may be on that plate, that if you don't clean and sanitize properly, can actually cause a foodborne illness further down the line. If you're using
and cleaning, that's the scrubbing.
Cleaning is the scrubbing, yep. And
sanitizing?
Sanitizing actually is what kills any bacteria that may be left on the plate. So you can do it a couple of ways. One is using heat. Most bacteria is quite susceptible to heat. So anything over 75 degrees Celsius is an instant kill. And that's why cooking is so effective at making food safe as well. It's also very effective. Heat is very effective at sanitizing plates and dishes, particularly ones that go to the dishwasher. The other way is using a chemical sanitizer, which will have the same effect. Just making sure that whatever you use is suitable for use in a food handling environment.
So what's it? Can you give me an example of a chemical sanitizer?
A basic chlorine-based sanitizer is a great one. It's very simple, easy to make up, and very effective. And the chlorine will dissipate afterwards, so there's no residues left behind either.
Right. Okay. So
that's probably the easiest one, and the one we see the most being used as well. Yeah. It's just a matter of making sure it's made up correctly and it's at the correct concentration.
But for most people, if they're using a dishwasher, just putting everything through the dishwasher, they don't have to then think about it.
Oh, you'd be surprised. Dishwashers are very good at getting the water at the right temperature, but you need to make sure it's the actual surface of the plate or the cup that gets to the right temperature. And that's often where we find issues, not only in daycare situations, but also in retail as well.
Right. Okay. And what about like your bench tops? You need to either do them with the sanitizer.
Absolutely. So getting a spray bottle of a sanitizer and a clean cloth, using a clean cloth every time, or disposable paper towel, spraying your bench top down, leaving it there for whatever contact time your particular sanitizer may need, and then wiping it off.
Okay, cool. I've got that. So some educators work from like converted garages or from the shed out the back, and they often have like small kitchenettes in them. They might have a microwave and a sink. Is there anything particular they need to worry about in that situation?
Look, irrespective of whether they're using their home kitchen, whether they're a separate daycare centre, or whether they're using a converted garage, they still need to meet the basic structural requirements that are in the Food Standards Code. So there really shouldn't be any difference to what they have. Even if it's a small kitchenette, they should be able to maintain temperature control for food. They should be able to have facilities there for cleaning and sanitizing, and their surfaces of all their benches, etc., should be made out of a suitable material. So a timber bench is not going to cut it because that can't be effectively cleaned and sanitized, but a laminate bench, a metal bench, anything like that would be suitable.
And it's important, isn't it, to look at things like joins between your
absolutely
cupboard. Why is that?
Because they could be harbourage spots for bacteria. You can get dirt wedged in there, and if you're in the middle of cooking, and you'll get a little bit that comes loose, and all of a sudden it ends up in the food accidentally. And we know it's not intentional, absolutely not, but it is a risk. And so joints and things like that should be as smooth as possible, and making sure
out there with your silicone and
absolutely, yes. Yeah. Or try and avoid them altogether, if that's possible.
Right. Okay, cool. And some educators don't actually prepare food. They just, parents give them lunch boxes. What do they need to do under the legislation? What do they need to be aware of?
Yep, so they need to have provisions for being able to keep that food cold, because typically it's going to be things like sandwiches and yogurts and all those kind of good things that parents give their kids for lunch at daycare. So they need to have a refrigerator to be able to keep that food cold. If the kids are being served their food out of the lunchbox onto a plate, then they need to have provisions there for cleaning the plates. They need to make sure the fridge itself, including things like the handles, the seals, the shelves, the internal surfaces, are all kept clean and sanitized as well. And they also, under allergen risk, need to make sure they give the right lunchbox to the right child as well.
Yeah, I think they're pretty aware of that one. What about, there's been a bit of a fuss in centre-based services recently that take lunchboxes about those insulated lunchboxes because they're not cold enough for the refrigerator to be able to penetrate.
Yeah, something I'm not across. I haven't had any conversations with anyone about that, so probably really not my.
Okay, well, I've just heard that they're being told to open up those lunch boxes that are insulated to ensure that the cold air from the fridge can actually.
Oh, okay. That's the first I've heard of that one.
Yeah. What about if parents send like an ice block in their food? With their food like they're told to at school? Is that not good enough?
Look, ice bricks are good, but are they keeping the food below 4 degrees Celsius or 5 degrees Celsius? Probably not. And as the food handler and as the that when they accept that lunchbox, they're also accepting the responsibility to store that appropriately. So having a fridge there to keep that food nice and cold is their best option.
Okay. What are the main things that we need to teach children about foodborne illnesses?
Yeah, so my son's very well versed in all of this, as you
I'm
can
sure he is.
Look, washing your hands before handling food, before eating lunch as well, and after handling any raw food. So if they're doing a cooking activity in family daycare, that's really a really great time to stress the importance of hand washing when you're handling food. Making sure food is hot and cold, and making sure everything's nice and clean. If kids can get those basics down pat, they're well on their way.
Okay, that sounds fairly easy.
Yeah.
So I suspect that some educators have kind of moved away from preparing food for children and are just doing the lunch boxes because of their concerns about it's more legislation they've got to abide by, etc. Which I think is quite sad, because preparing food with children and for children can be quite a great thing.
Yeah.
So is there any way those educators can be reassured that they can prepare food safely and in the guidelines of the law?
Look, it's realistically, I mean, food safety, it's not rocket science. It's a few basic rules that if you stick to them, you're going to be probably fine. So it's the making sure your facility complies in the first stage in terms of structure, because facilities that are structurally compliant are going to be ones that be easier to keep clean. Making sure you maintain your temperature control with food, and then that cleaning and sanitizing, which is not hard to do, but it's making sure knowing how to make up your sanitizer properly and how to use it properly, and making sure you do it every day. If you're doing activities with the kids, such as a cooking activity in class, pick a activity for something that's going to be low risk. So something like making a cake or cookies that you know is going to go in the oven, get a thorough cooking, so it would kill off anything that might accidentally end up in there. And that way, you know, you're making a safe food, but having a great activity that kids can participate in as well. So it's not hard. And the Food Authority, we have a wealth of resources on our website as well, which can actually, and fact sheets that can actually help facilities if they want some extra information, or they can call our contact centre as well.
Okay, thank you very much. That sounds, like it should be fairly simple and easily, and probably a lot of us have absorbed so many food messages through the years that we just do it as second nature.
We do, yes.
We're aware of, and it needn't have that extra level of anxiety around it. Thank you very much for your help, Anne.
No worries. Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.